Welcome back to the new SOC Level 1 training series. It's your boy Hank Hackerson, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about systems as attack vectors. As a reminder, an attack vector is essentially a pathway that a hacker can use to attack you or your system or your company or your country. And so when we're talking about systems being the attack vector, we're talking about a point of entry that a hacker or a malicious actor can take advantage of to gain entrance, right? To gain their initial foothold and then expand their privileges and do whatever the hell it is that they're trying to do to rob you or to hold you at ransom or steal data, whatever, you know what I mean? So the conversation today is going to be around these systems serving as those points of entry and how attackers actually exploit those vulnerable or misconfigured systems and how you can protect them. Because when you are talking about a SOC, a Security Operations Center, and what you would be doing as an analyst inside of the SOC, your entire job is to protect those systems and of course protect the people sitting behind those systems and the data that's inside of those systems and the functionalities that's inside of those systems, so on and so forth. So the outline today is obviously the introduction, the definition of a system, attacks on those systems, what vulnerabilities are, misconfigurations and how they differ from vulnerabilities and what they have in common with vulnerabilities. Of course, we're going to have a practice exercise and we're going to talk about the conclusion and our final thoughts, and you'll be dismissed for the day. There will be timestamps in the description below so that you can jump into each individual section and go back and forth if you really need to. And that's pretty much it. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So a quick little note from Hackaholics Anonymous and we will dive into it. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. So as we wrap our introduction to SOC, right? So it's the blue team introduction actually. So as we wrap our introduction to the blue team and we wrap up this specific room, which is going to be a part of that module, really all we're doing is kind of reviewing other concepts that we've talked about previously in this module, basically in the last couple of episodes, and finalizing it and wrapping it up with the hacking and protecting of systems. So these systems that are used as attack vectors and what they are, why and how threat groups actually target them, and what you can do as a SOC analyst to keep your company secure, to keep yourself secure, honestly, because I know that there are a lot of people that come to this channel that aren't necessarily working at a company as a security analyst. Maybe you want to do that, but before you can work for a company, or if you're not working at a company and you don't want to work at a company as a security analyst, one of the key things that you really have to learn how to do is protect yourself and protect the systems that are inside of your network at home, your local area network, your LAN that you have with your Wi-Fi and your router, and if you have a switch or something, you know what I mean? Like all of those different portions of your internal network, and learning how to protect them, learning how to protect yourself, your devices, your data, and ultimately your assets, right? So all of those things can be done essentially with the same series of steps that you would do if you were working as a SOC analyst for a company. So our role is to learn the role, or I should say our goal is to learn the role of a system in a modern and digital world, to explore a variety of real-world attacks targeting those systems, and of course practice that knowledge in 2 realistic scenarios. The prerequisites are the Junior Security Analyst Room, which we've already talked about multiple times, and of course Humans as Attack Vectors, which is the video right before this video. And if you're watching this compilation, so I always compile all of the previous episodes per section into one giant upload. So if you're watching the compilation video, then you would have seen in the previous 2 sections of that main video, like of this giant, I don't know, 4-hour long video, however long it's going to be, you would have seen the episode right this one before this one. The section right before this one would be the Humans as Attack Vectors section. If you're watching them standalone episodes, it would be the Humans as Attack Vectors episode, which would be the episode right before this one. So that being said, let's now talk about the official definition of a system. So going back to our castle example, if you have a trained gatekeeper who knows how to identify phishing and how to combat deepfakes, that would be kind of, I guess, the gatekeeper of a digital castle, kind of. So if the lock on the main gate is fragile and cheap, the guardian skills don't really matter, as the enemy can just sneak into the castle while no one is watching. They can just break the lock, right? In cyber terms, threat actors can attack insecure systems directly without the user's knowledge. And this is kind of one of the easier problems to solve in cybersecurity, because it's relatively simple to patch a system or to upgrade a system and, configure it properly. Like, those things are so much simpler than having to train human beings. You know what I mean? It's like maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a nerd, or maybe it's because I just like technology, or maybe it's because I find most human beings absolutely impossible to deal with because they insist on being idiots. Whatever the reason is, I just find it simpler to fix a system than to try to train a human to try to see things your way, especially if they're just, I don't know, maybe they don't have the mental faculties to learn what you have learned, or they simply don't think it's important enough, or they think you're a nerd, so they don't want to listen to you because they think they're cool. I don't know, man. There are so many different reasons why somebody could be a freaking douche and they don't listen to you when you tell them, hey, it's important for you to secure your computer and don't click on random links and don't download shit, etc., etc., etc. All of those things. There are so many reasons why a human being can be impossible to deal with. So for those reasons, and then some, I think that systems are easier to fix and patch. So let's talk about what it means to actually be a system, right? Or what it means to have a system. What does a system mean? So where the banks store your cards, right? So let's talk about that. Where do the banks store your cards? Your actual card numbers, right? Where are your emails stored? And the answer to that, short answer, is on a system. It's a physical server somewhere, or a virtual machine which is housed on a physical server at a warehouse of servers through AWS, for example, or a cloud platform like Microsoft 365 that is through the Microsoft cloud environment. But ultimately, it ends up on a physical server somewhere. More often than not, especially recently as the evolution of technology is just faster and faster, most companies rely on virtual machines and cloud environments because you no longer have to go buy physical servers and upgrade and update your physical infrastructure, the actual CPUs and GPUs and power sources and wires and all of that stuff. You can just hire a company like Microsoft, right? Pay them a monthly fee and then rely on them to keep everything up to date. The physical infrastructure is up to date. And then you just rent the space from them on their physical servers. That's basically it, right? That's kind of what it's like these days. More often than not, companies no longer have a physical server inside of a warehouse somewhere that they own. They just rent it from Google Cloud or Microsoft or AWS or fill in the blank, just some major service provider, a server provider. So protecting these kinds of systems is very important, physically protecting them, right? It could be that you want to be in an environment that there isn't mold, there are no earthquakes or hurricanes, that overheating is not a thing, that people can't break into the building and rob the environment or destroy the servers. You have physical security around, you have CCTV cameras and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that protection on a physical layer is very important, but it's also the protection on a digital and logical layer that's also very important. If the attackers breach one user's mailbox via phishing, they compromise a single mailbox. But if they breach a mail server, now they control thousands of mailboxes. Each system type can have a different value for threat actors. For example, a personal laptop of a school student they can steal their Steam profile and add the PC to a botnet, right? So Steam is a video game, kind of like a video game application library, as well as a launching platform where you can buy and download games from the Steam marketplace, and then through your Steam library, you can launch the game and play the game, and then you have a user profile attached to it, you have your credit card number attached to it, but of course your computer is attached to it as well. So they could technically steal your Steam profile and add the PC that is connected to it to a botnet, a laptop of the bank's senior IT administrator, so they get access to the internal banking system, of course, a mail server of a criminal law company. They can dump all the mailboxes and blackmail the victim. A server at the heart of an industrial network. They can encrypt the whole network with ransomware. A government website management, damage the website content, defacement, activism, or take the government entity off grid, depending on what it is, depending on what the government entity actually does. So there are a lot of different things, right? And these are just a handful of examples. There are so many other kind of examples that we can talk about, but essentially they have similar functionalities. It would be a personal laptop, a mail server, a server at the heart of a network, a government website, physical computer, desktop, whatever it is. It could be a cell phone. It could be an IoT device, which is, a smart TV is an IoT device technically. So there are just so many things that can act as a system and they can serve different purposes. So can cyber attacks happen without victim intervention? And the answer to that is yay, they can. Can a breach of just a single system lead to disastrous consequences? And the answer to that is also yes, it can. So let's talk about the attacks on these systems. So in most, if not all attacks, the first goal is to actually gain access to the target system. And in the last episode, we talked about using the human being as the initial foothold or as the attack vector to gain access to the target system. So what happens next depends on the attacker's motivation. So do they want to steal data? Do they want to deploy ransomware or malware? Do they want to destroy information without a way for it to be recovered? So evidence that can incriminate somebody and send them to jail for the rest of their life. Maybe they want to destroy that information, right? Or one of the examples that we talked about in the last video, let's say that the prime minister of a country is hospitalized for some reason and they're allergic to a certain type of sedative. And so the hacker breaks into the hospital database and they delete the information about the type of sedative that prime minister is allergic to. And let's say it's a common sedative that they use all the time to sedate people. And so they administer that to the prime minister and they're allergic. So they have an allergic reaction and they die. And just like that, the hacker or the group that hired the hacker didn't have to do anything crazy. They just had to hack into a system at a hospital. And next thing you know, that prime minister has been assassinated indirectly without somebody having to go and inject him with a poison or shoot him or anything like that, or bomb him, anything like that. So it's really crazy the types of effects that something like this can have. It can literally be life and death. So nearly all attacks begin the same way. So we're going to look at 3 different examples. The human-led attack is probably the prime one. So system users are often those who can start the attack by inserting a malicious USB found on the street, downloading malware from pirated sources, or simply reusing a weak password everywhere. 81% of breaches involve stolen or breached passwords, and your specific password could be the same. So it's like a part of a phishing campaign to give somebody a free cup of coffee, and they have to just create a username and a password. And more often than not, they use the same password that they used for their work login. And so if you found their work login on their business card, like their work email on their business card, and then after that, you got them to give you their password somewhere through a different kind of website, now you can combine those 2 pieces of intelligence and technically log in as that person into one of their business systems. It's kind of crazy when you really think about it like that, but humans are creatures of habit. So relying on that is one of the things that hackers can do. So I have different passwords. Believe it or not, it's like being the person who is teaching people this information. After a while, I was like, oh shoot, you know what? I should probably be creating different passwords for different functions in my life. So my computers at home all have different passwords. My cell phone obviously have a different password. My computers at work have different passwords. And then when I create some kind of an online profile for a shoe store or to get free dog food or something, whatever it is, I will also use a different password. So it's very, very important for you to have different passwords. You can, if you use password storage kind of services where all of your passwords are stored in a service because they're just a series of random letters and numbers, then the main password that gives you access to that service, that needs to be a very complex password, so it can't be broken into, because if they do break into that, then all of your passwords are now exposed. So I don't use those types of service providers. I just have individualized passwords for my systems because I don't know, for maybe it's a preference thing, maybe it's a security thing. I'm not exactly sure. There's probably a reason why I have to think about why exactly I do it. But for me right now, I just rely more on my own passwords being stored in my brain than having to store my passwords somewhere else. So 81% of breaches involve stolen or breached passwords. So just keep that piece in mind. So we have this right here. haveibeenpwned.com/passwords, right? And then risks of using a TryHackMe as a password. And it says, no, TryHackMe has been pwned. Somebody has previously used that and it's been leaked in a password dictionary database somewhere. So this password has been seen 425 times before in data breaches. So you do not want to do that. There's also this concept of the rubber ducky USB drive that runs malware as soon as you plug it in. You don't even have to open it or install it. As soon as it's plugged in, it runs the malware. So there are so many different ways that you can secure yourself and be on alert when you're interacting with something that just seems suspicious. If it even hints towards being suspicious, chances are it is, and so you should tread softly. So there's the human element, right? The human-led attack. And then there's actual vulnerability in the system. So every piece of software can have security flaws. And ultimately, again, as technology evolves, hackers evolve, therefore their strategies evolve, their knowledge base evolves, and the same system that was secure 2 years ago can be vulnerable today. So in 2024, over 40,000 software vulnerabilities were published and more than 300 were actively exploited in major attacks. Moreover, IT administrators often increase their risk by setting weak passwords and allowing unrestricted access to their systems. How insane is that? It's an IT administrator's job to have extremely strong passwords and restrict access to systems. That's insane. That's insane when you think about it. But IT administrators are human beings. Therefore, that's what they freaking do for convenience or because they were absent-minded or they were hungover. There are so many reasons why a human being can make an error. I just think that it's freaking insane that an IT admin would make that kind of a mistake. It's literally your job, dude. But anyways, okay. What do we have over here? We have the, this looks like a search for a specific type of operating system on Shodan, it looks like. So 100,000 plus outdated Windows hosts around the globe. So Windows Server 2008 is obviously outdated. Windows XP is obviously outdated. So if you find these types of servers, then you can bet your sweet behind that there is vulnerabilities that you can exploit. If you just launch Metasploit and search for Windows Server 2008, there are going to be dozens of exploits created for Windows Server 2008 ready to run. So these types of systems are so outdated that 2008, dude, that is what, 17 years ago? That's insane. 17 years ago. If you have a 17-year-old operating system and you're still running it, you deserve to be hacked, dude. That's basically what it is. If you're a company that's doing it, let me just say that. If you're a company that is launching a 17-year-old server and you haven't patched it, you haven't done other things to potentially secure it, you are just asking to get hacked. The CISA Kiev Catalog 2024-2025, basically 325 new critical major vulnerabilities since 2024. 60 of them for Microsoft, 13 for Apple, 12 for Google, 9 for Linux, 8 for Fortinet, 8 for Cisco, 8 for VMware, and 6 for Android. Very interesting stuff. So that was level 2, right? The vulnerability of the machine itself. And then there's the supply chain. This is actually a really interesting one. So your PC is home to hundreds of applications, and then there's also the physical installations on your PC. So for example, the GPU that's installed on it, right? The CPU that is installed on it, the actual motherboard that's installed on it. There are so many different physical elements that also fall into the supply chain. So it's not just the applications and the web browsers, messengers, development, entertainment software. It's not just the digital logical stuff. It's the physical stuff too. There was this company called Huawei, which was a cell phone provider, and it is based out of China. And for a while, they were releasing their phones in the United States until it was found that physically inside of the phone there were chips that were recording information about users and directly sending them to to China. And because there were cheap phones and there were strong phones, people were like, oh hell yeah, I definitely want to use this phone, buy this phone. And because of that, a lot of people had them. And then after a while, when they found out that those phones were literally acting as beacons, sending data back to China, they were banned from the United States, and nobody is allowed to have them, nobody's allowed to sell them, etc. And so there are chips that can be manufactured in China that they send back, and within that chip, there could be, I will say, not probably, but there could be some kind of worm or some kind of keylogger or some kind of recording device, some kind of beacon installed, that as soon as it's installed on a computer here and then somebody uses that computer, they could be sending data back to China or any other country, really. So think about these chips coming to the United States, being installed in Dell computers because Dell uses China as one of their manufacturers. You know what I mean? So it's a very interesting concept when you really think about it. So there's a list of suppliers that strictly can only be used to provide supplies, physical elements to build servers and computers and things like that. I believe it's called the Trusted Foundry, which is a list of these suppliers that if somebody is building a computer company in the United States, they're only allowed to supply themselves from that list of manufacturers because they've been vetted and they are trusted, right? So talking about the logical stuff, the digital stuff, every app depends on thousands of libraries. If threat actors manage to breach one of the apps or libraries and push an update to all of the users, all of them will be compromised. So think about your calculator app on your computer. If that app, or if the dependency for that app is compromised, or your messenger app for WhatsApp, or I don't know, man, there are so many of these things that exist that billions of people have them installed. So this is called a supply chain attack. The most famous examples are the SolarWinds, which was it is a very large company, but it was a very widespread update. So it's like there was an update to SolarWinds, but the update source code was compromised. There was some kind of malware or something that was injected inside of the source code. And SolarWinds is used by Fortune 500 companies. It's used by government organizations. So literally millions of companies use them. And so that update was spread to millions of companies. Microsoft actually used SolarWinds. I don't know if they still do, but they did at this time. But they were savvy enough to catch the fact that the update was actually compromised, and so they stopped it in its tracks. And though they weren't affected, but many other companies were affected, and SolarWinds lost a lot of credibility and reputation. They're still around. Obviously, they've patched it. It's been resolved, but they took a really big hit in that specific scandal. 3CX is another one. They affected thousands of companies. It was just a really, really big, widespread kind of a thing, because if thousands of companies use SolarWinds, and then each one of those companies have hundreds, if not thousands of users, but your end result is that you're going to affect millions of people. So it's a very, very, very interesting approach and a very effective approach. If you can get into the supply chain, it's a very effective approach. The emerging threat of the supply chain. It's hard to protect from supply chain attacks since you can't always control all the software present on your laptop, server, or web applications. Even TryHackMe once fell victim to a supply chain in Lottie Player, a library used for room animations. As a SOC analyst, you must be ready for such scenarios and know how to respond. Let's go ahead and read this little fell victim thing because that's actually very interesting. So, Lottie supply chain attack. I have not gone through this, so this is actually new. The machines are not available in your current VM region. Task 1 accessible from Europe and Ireland. Head to Manage Account page to switch your VM region. Alternatively, you could ask the owner of the machine to mitigate it to another region. That is interesting. This is the first time I'm actually seeing this message. This is so interesting to me. So the Lottie Player supply chain attack. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because I will go off on the tangent and it'll be really crazy, but that is so crazy. And there's a logo of a Bitcoin thing right here. So I imagine that it had something to do with getting people to pay Bitcoin. That is crazy. Okay, so what is the term for a security flaw that can be exploited to breach a system? And as soon as my keyboard wakes back up, we have a vulnerability. What is the name of the attack when malware comes from a trusted app or library? And we call that the supply chain attack. All right, let's talk about vulnerabilities. So without going down too many different rabbit holes, we're going to stay on the concept of software vulnerabilities because as a SOC analyst and as somebody that's going to be on the blue team, you're mostly going to be dealing with software. The physical hardware will be managed by the network engineers as well as the security engineers and system administrators, etc. So your job mostly is going to be centered around the software vulnerability. So every piece of software has flaws, but some take years to be discovered. For example, shell shock, which is a Linux vulnerability, existed since 1992, but it wasn't found until 2014. And in the worst case scenario, attackers discovered the vulnerability before anybody else. This is known as a 0-day vulnerability. And only your SOC skills can determine whether it's detected in time. So the key thing about a 0-day vulnerability is that there is no signature that exists for that vulnerability. So let's do this as an example, just to kind of show you. So VirusTotal is a website that has, thousands of different signatures that have been stored in, probably millions, honestly, of different signatures that have been stored here. And so we can do either a file upload, right? And so there's the hash value of the file that would be scanned by this, and as well as the contents of the file and things like that. We could do URLs and we could search for hash values, IP addresses, domains, or things like that, right? So we could do a variety of different things. So if I come over here and I just, as an example, we'll just do google.com, right? So we search for google.com and there are currently 98 vendors that provide a status of whether or not this domain is clean or not, right? So in this particular case, we have google.com. It's very well known, obviously. And so they would look at Google's search ranking, their history, everything else that's associated with it, community notes, things like that, okay? If you were to upload a file, or if you were to get the hash value of a file and paste it in the search and go through that, they would look at the signature of that, right? And so databases like VirusTotal or databases like MITRE or Attack or everything like that, all of those things feed into a variety of different security appliances. So these security appliances that these SOC analysts use, they refer to the massive database of signatures to see if anything that's running matches a signature for something that is known to be malicious. And so if it's known to be malicious, it's very easy. It's like, hey, you know what? I recognize the signature. It's lined up with this malware. This is going to be blocked, etc., etc. If there is no signature that exists, it is considered 0-day because for whatever reason, either it wasn't detected before, so there's no signature in the databases for it, or it's brand spanking new and somebody just created it, so there wouldn't be any kind of database entry for it. But whatever the reason is, if it's never been detected before, then there's no signature. Therefore, there are 0 days to recognize it. There are 0 days to respond to it. It has existed for 0 days, technically. That's what it means. And 0 day is actually a military term that was used to imply to something similar, except just in military context. But literally, it's the same concept thing. It's like it has never been used before, therefore we don't recognize it, and therefore we don't have any amount of time to prepare for it. Because it just hit us. We have 0 days to prepare for it. We need to respond to it right away. We need to recognize it right away, etc., etc. So detecting something like that in time and then responding to it accordingly is something that is very, very important. And the AI course that I'm creating has a lot to do with using AI for specific purposes like this, because 0 day vulnerabilities more so have signs of the traffic patterns changing. It's called an anomaly. It's like when you notice something that is outside of the regular traffic patterns, or something known as the baseline. If it's outside of the baseline traffic patterns, then that's probably a 0 day vulnerability. And an AI tool is much better at recognizing that than a human being might be, especially if it's like a junior analyst that's sitting there and they don't have enough experience and they're like, what the heck is this? Or they don't even notice that there's something wrong. So once a vulnerability is made public, it is assigned a common vulnerability exposure number, or otherwise known as a signature. And from that moment, it's a race. Attackers develop exploits while defenders rush to update their systems. And this is the timeline of how Windows vulnerabilities evolve every year. So we have the Eternal Blue, which is the server message block vulnerability. We have the 0 day security bypass. We have Felina, which is a Microsoft Office flaw. Print Nightmare, critical flaw, and the print spooler. And so all of these things, you can see that they have their own CVEs, right? So they get added to the database of CVEs. And if they're addressed on time, and if Microsoft is quick to patch those systems, usually in my experience, before these CVEs are even generated and they're publicized, the patch already exists. So before it becomes public knowledge that there is a vulnerability, they've already patched their systems. Now they're just reporting that there is this vulnerability that we found, we've already patched it, right? Because it would be silly to make the announcement, hey, there's a vulnerability in our system. We haven't patched it yet, but yeah, you should know there's a vulnerability in our system. It's like, what are you doing? So they would definitely patch it in advance before they publicize it, because they don't want to get hacked, dude. It's kind of silly to do it the other way. So responding to these vulnerabilities is going to be your job. An answer to a CVE is always a patch or an update, basically, that's supplied by the software vendor. Even for 0 days, you'll have to wait for a patch. So vigilantly monitor for exploitation traces and try to survive the stressful period before the patch is released. For example, restrict access to the system only to the trusted IP addresses inside of your network. Apply temporary measures to provided by the vendor. Block known attack patterns on your intrusion prevention system or your web application firewall. Whatever it is, do whatever you can to limit the access to that system. And if it's something that is not absolutely necessary for your business to function, just turn it off until there is the patch that's available, and then you can patch it and then turn it back on. That's kind of the foolproof way of doing it. So what is this CVE for the critical SharePoint vulnerability dubbed tool shell? So let's see if we can actually find this here. I don't think it's here. So the CVE for tool shell, I'm just going to do a Google search for this one. We have the critical SharePoint vulnerability dubbed tool shell is primarily associated with CVE 2025 53770. Let's see if that's what they're looking for. Let's try it. All right, cool. There we go. So it's a lot of times, actually, not even sometimes, a lot of times it's as simple as just Googling it. So if you know SharePoint vulnerability dubbed tool shell exists, you can go find the CVE. Or if you do a vulnerability scan and you find a CVE number and you don't know what it is, you can go ahead and copy that CVE number. Oh, this is from the last video. You can copy that CVE number, go here, and then you're like, oh, wow, look at that. National Institute of Standards of Technology. It has this CVE. It gives you the description to it, the references to the advisories, all the different URLs that match up to it, weakness enumeration, affected software configurations, And throughout all of this literature and everything that you found over here, you can also find patches for this and how to mitigate against it. So there are a lot of different ways that finding this information can help you with your intelligence gathering and preparing for potential attacks and threats. How would you respond to a detected vulnerability on your system? How would you respond to a detected vulnerability on your system? Okay, I mean, there are a lot of different ways that we can do it, but let's see. A patch. Oh, boom, right there. That is the answer. Patch it. Patch Adams. Shout out to anybody who knows what movie that is. Patch Adams. All right, let's talk about misconfigurations now. A misconfiguration is not a bug in the software, but it was a mistake on how the system was set up, often by the IT people. These errors happen frequently because the IT people are human beings and they make human mistakes. Usually to make things simpler, that's kind of the intention behind it, like using 1111 instead of typing a long password every single time. So let's take a look at some real world examples. 123456 was the password that was exposed chats for 64 million McDonald's job applications. Good Lord. How a misconfigured AWS cloud resulted in a breach of 106 million bank customers. How improperly configured smart fridges are silently used in full-scale botnet attacks. This is happening all the time. I mean, smart fridges are a relatively recent invention. So just that by itself is like, if it's a smart fridge, and just in case you don't know what that means, okay? Smart anything means that it connects to the internet, and then you can communicate with it via your cell phone. And then in advance, it'll send you a ding saying, hey, I'm low on ice or something. I don't know, maybe not ice, but oh, you need to change my water filter. Let's say that's the thing, right? It's time to change my water filter. Or if it's tracking a specific section in the fridge that handles your drinks. It's like, this specific drink is low. You need to restock this drink. Things like that. Okay, when you think about this kind of stuff, it's like, okay, cool, that's super convenient to have something like that, but it connects to the internet. If it connects to the internet, that means it has an IP address. If it has an IP address, that means somebody can take that IP address and add it to a list of IP addresses known as a botnet. And now your fridge is a zombie inside of that botnet until somebody from the dark web goes and hires the person who owns that botnet and says, hey, I want you to go and do a denial of service attack, a DDoS, a distributed denial of service attack against my competitor. And so you pay them $50,000 and they do a botnet attack, and then next thing you know, your competitor's website crashed, right? And the reason, it's very simple. It's like that refrigerator tried to connect to the competitor's website because it has an IP address, it's connected to the internet, so it's not going to do anything on the competitor's website. It's just sending a ping to the competitor's website. And next thing you know, the freaking website is crashed. So this is not something that's old. Like this entire training series is based on new information that was distributed by TryHackMe. So the new SOC Level 1 training series is an updated system. It's an updated series of classes. So when we think about that, this information is new. All of these things are happening right now. This is not something that was outdated. So it's just important to keep that element in mind. Another common scenario is when the IT department unknowingly introduces new flaws into secure systems. This is a simple example of how a critical database can be breached because of insecure misconfiguration. So you have the latest SQL database is installed. You put the customer in the database. You set the password to 1111. Disable the firewall for the database. Wait just a few days. Threat actors steal the data. Why? Why would they even do that? Like, why would you disable the firewall? What the hell is wrong with you? So no vulnerabilities or misconfigurations here, right? They just installed it. The database now stores sensitive data, but it's still no vulnerability or misconfiguration. The first misconfiguration is putting 1111 as a password to the database, bro. What is wrong with you? The second misconfiguration is unrestricted access. Why would you disable the fire? You put 1111 as the password and then you disable the firewall. It's like you were asking to be hacked. Like what? Anyways. Misconfigurations do not require a software update. This is very important to understand. There's nothing wrong with the software. There's something wrong with the way the software was set up, the way the software was configured, right? Just a better setup is required. So as a SOC analyst, you'll often spot them only after the threat actor exploits them because there is no notification that says this software is out of date. In smaller companies, you might also be responsible for a more proactive response. For example, penetration testing, testing the actual software itself to see if you can do like a brute force attack with a password list, and on the password list, 1111 is a password. So you hire ethical hackers who simulate an attack and report on discovered security flaws. Vulnerability scans periodically run tools that can detect default passwords or outdated software. Configuration audits manually review the systems to match best practices like the CIS benchmarks. So these are just some of the things that you can do to be proactive when you're trying to respond or account for misconfigurations. Okay. Can a system patch or software update fix misconfigurations? The answer to that is nay, because that's not the problem. Which activity involves an authorized cyber attack to detect misconfigurations? That would be something called a penetration testing. Here we go. Alrighty then. Let us now move to the practice exercise. So this is going to be very similar to the practice exercise that we did in the last video. So we're going to be looking at 2 flags basically. And the way that we would get the answer for these flags is we would do 2 different exercises. So the first one is to review and analyze potential systems at risk. And then after that, prepare and implement the remediation plan for everything that we saw. So let's look at the systems at risk. The first one is the mail server. It seems like it's at risk. The action is required. So the pen testing team reported that our Exchange mail server is affected by the vulnerability here. They managed to breach the server thanks to that CVE and said anyone could do it since our server is internet exposed. So what action should be taken? Ask IT to immediately change passwords of all mail users. Ask IT to apply patch and update Exchange. Restrict access to that to only Office IPs. So what is the immediate action? Is that what we're supposed to do? I would say to apply the patch. There we go. Okay. That would be like the best thing to do. Next one is corporate website at risk. So the first one was the mail server. We got to kind of keep these things in mind as we go forward. Corporate website at risk, action required. The threat actors managed to brute force an admin panel of our WordPress website and replace the main page with malware links and gambling ads. What action should be taken? Restore the website from backups and close the alert. Update all website components to the latest version and change the admin's password to a more secure one. So they brute forced an admin panel for the website and replaced the image. So it has nothing to do with the website components or restoring it from backups and closing the alert, because you technically do want to restore the website from backups, but you first need to change the password of the admin so that it doesn't happen again, and then you do the restoration. Threat intelligence alert, action required. Our neighbor company was hit with ransomware attacks a week ago. They said it started from an exploitation of their old Cisco firewall and advised us not to repeat their mistake and audit our Cisco devices. So ensure all corporate firewalls are patched and do not have CVEs. Replace all Cisco devices with alternatives. Disable all firewalls until the audit is finished. That's definitely not the answer. And you don't need to replace Cisco devices. Cisco is a really strong name. It's just that you got to make sure that they're all patched and don't have CVEs. That's the thing. Okay, so LPT is at risk. Action required. You observe an unusual spike of security events coming from the designer's laptop. A trusted 3D design application suddenly starts running malicious commands after the recent update. You need to quickly plan your next step. It's an app misconfiguration made by the designer, maybe, or is it? So from designer's laptop, a trusted design application suddenly starts running malicious commands. Okay, so if it's an application, I mean, that's not even an action. It's like it is an app misconfiguration made by the designer. It is a new critical vulnerability in the design app. It is a supply chain attack coming with the recent update. That could be the thing, but it's like these aren't actions. None of these things are actions. The question is very misleading, and none of these things are actions. It's just kind of identifying what's going on. So maybe it's a critical vulnerability, fine. Maybe it's an app misconfiguration. I don't think so. It would be a supply chain attack because they're using an app for design. Okay, so there's the flag for the first one, right? So for the first set of systems at risk, we got that. Now, we're going to go back to the dashboard and we're going to do our remediation plan. So this part is also very interesting. So we have a series of steps and we get to only choose 4 of them, right? So we're going to look at the very top. Ask IT to use a single shared account to simplify security monitoring. That's not good. Patch management. Define a clear process for identifying, testing, and applying software patches. That's good. Enforce strong auto-generated passwords for all admin and service accounts. I'm going to earmark that. That's pretty solid. Obscure server naming. Use random servers like X719 to confuse potential attackers. I mean, it's fine, but it's not really that relevant. Install reliable antivirus software on all critical corporate systems. That's a yes. Website restrictions. Block public access to your company's website to protect it from threats. It's a company website, so I don't know if we want to do that. Security training for IT. That is definitely a yes. I would say the password policy is the other one. So let's see if this is it. That is it. Yes, approve all the policies. And there's our final flag, baby. Nicely done. All right, I hope you got the same answers as me, but if not, now you know the answers. So, nicely done. There's an interesting final note here in our conclusion. It says, even though SOC analysts don't typically manage systems directly, understanding the common attacks and defenses and sharing them with the IT department is a key to broadening your cybersecurity perspective. So understanding the attacks and defenses and then sharing them with the IT is key. If you want to grow quickly, stay updated on the latest threats. And so we have the DFIR report. So digital forensics and incident response, that's what that stands for. How intrusions happen. So who is this by? The DFIR report is actually a website. So the dfirreport.com, and it has a lot of reports. So that's actually very handy. CISA, known exploited vulnerabilities. It opened in a new window accidentally. America Cyber Defense Agency. This is actually a government website. So CISA.com. This is actually a really good one. I would highly encourage you to bookmark that. Bleeping Computer, we talked about in the last video as well. This is a private website, meaning it's owned by a specific group of individuals or an individual. It is kind of slow on the load, so I'll just warn you on that. And then we also have Checkpoint, which is the interactive live threat map. This is actually really interesting. There are a lot of different live threat maps that exist. And so as you see, after a while, it just starts filling in all the attacks that are taking place. And then you'll see on the left-hand side, the type of system that is being attacked. And as you let this kind of load, because it is a live threat map, so as you let it load, you see it, all of a sudden, all these lines start filling in. And then you'll see attacks taking place from one country to another. And then next thing you know, it's like the whole map gets lit up. So today, there were 4.9 million attacks that were launched today. That's really crazy to think about. So 4.9 million attacks launched today. This is actually really, really interesting. I visit this type of a map all the time. The Checkpoint map is actually really interesting. So I used to search for the cyber threat map or the cyber attack map, which there's a lot of different versions of that as well. So if we actually do this, if I do cyber attack map, there's another good one that's really interesting. I think it's the one from Kaspersky. I think it's this one because it has the globe. Yeah, this is the one right here. This is also another really, really interesting one where you can literally see it in real time. You see all the attacks that are taking place. These are the cyber attacks. It's really insane. It's really crazy when you think about what the heck is going on. Like right now, as I'm recording this, all of this is happening. So you can go to the cybermap.kaspersky.com, or you can go to the previous map that we looked at. This is just a really interesting example of what's happening. It's really, really crazy to think about. And on the left-hand side, it says the #1 most attacked country is Russia right now. And then you can drop it down and go look at all of these different websites to see which one the next one is. So if we go to China, for example, this is the #2 most attacked country. Let's see if we can find Iran, my hometown. Let's see where Iran is ranked. Iran is the number 40 most attacked country. Interesting. I thought that they would be higher on the list. I guess we need to do a better job of being attacked. I don't know. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. What about Israel? Israel is number 62 of the most attacked countries. I'm so curious what the third most attacked country is. Maybe it's the United States. Let's look at the United States. United States it's not even on here. So US is not even on here. Is it under America? It's not even on there. That's so interesting. Why is the United States not on there? Interesting. Japan is number 10. And then the graphics of this website are just much cooler. This is really cool. Feels like a video game or something like that. Anyways, I digress and I go on a bunch of different tangents, but tangents pronunciation is important. That's pretty much it. I hope you found value in this video. And that was it for this module. So if you found value in this video and if you would like to get more videos like this one, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that video comes out on this channel, especially as we go through SOC Level 1, as we go through CompTIA Pentest Plus practice labs and the attacks and everything that we're going to do, which falls hand in hand with the offensive pen testing module inside of TryHackMe. And of course, there's the AI for cybersecurity playlist that started a couple of weeks ago, and that's been going pretty well as well. A lot of people do like it and they receive it really well. So there's been a lot of really good responses to all of those playlists. And it's just going to keep going in the upcoming days, weeks, months, and probably years. There's just going to be more content that's going to be coming out on this channel. And it all centers around system administration, network security, cybersecurity, and of course, penetration testing and AI, because we're going into the age of AI. And by the end of the AI playlist, you're going to learn how to train AI, how to integrate AI, and build customized AI applications, as well as robotics and things like that. So all of these things are actually very, very interesting to me personally. That's why I'm putting them out. And it just so happens that other people are also interested in them. So if you're one of those people, if you have any questions or recommendations for content, drop them. There were a couple of comments that came in for videos to set up lab environments for pen testing. So I'm going to be doing that in the upcoming couple of days. Hopefully I'll get them done sooner than later, because I think people actually really get value out of that. So I'll just make sure that's available for you guys. And that's kind of how it goes. A lot of these things come from recommendations from other people in the community. So make sure you drop a comment. At the very least, I can say hi to you and you can say hi to me, and we can get to know each other in the comment section. If nothing else, make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that video comes out on this channel. And then, of course, there's Hackaholics Anonymous. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers. If you're ever a network and system attacker / protector, if no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. And I will see you in the next video later.